The first Deadpool and the second Deadpool actually are two of my favorite comic book movies.
He's the punk rocker who conquered Hollywood, the misfit who taught Marvel how to feel. James Gunn didn't follow the traditional path to blockbuster success. He clawed his way up from Trauma Entertainment's basement, through indie horror, and into the biggest franchise in cinema history. But when he discusses the films that forged his vision, Gunn doesn't sound like a superhero director. He sounds like that weird kid who found salvation in the dark of a movie theater. The best stories are about broken people learning to love each other. For Gunn, cinema has always been a sanctuary for the strange, the damaged, the left behind. His films don't just entertain, they embrace the unwanted and transform them into heroes. The frames that whispered to his outsider heart, the directors who proved genre could carry genuine emotion, the movies that didn't just show him how to make blockbusters, but how to sneak subversion into the mainstream. From corporate comedies to cosmic adventures, from horror masterpieces to fairy tale nightmares, Gunn's 6 favorite films decode his secret formula: how to make the biggest audiences care about the smallest characters. Here comes James Gunn naming his 6 favorite movies, the films that taught him weirdos could save the world. 6. The Apartment, 1960. Wilder made a corporate comedy that cut like a knife. And for Gunn, watching Jack Lemmon's C.C. Baxter lends his apartment to executives for their affairs while pining for an elevator operator who's sleeping with his boss, it was the first time he saw how loneliness could be funny until it wasn't. The way I figure it, you're probably the head of one department or another. The story seemed like standard office satire. A low-level insurance clerk climbs the corporate ladder by letting his superiors use his place for extramarital encounters. But Wilder's genius was in the humanity he found in the machinery. The way he could make you laugh at Baxter's situation while breaking your heart for him. Here was a movie that understood corporate alienation decades before anyone called it that. Gunn discovered it during his early days making low-budget films, when he was learning that the best comedy comes from pain. You see The Apartment in every Guardians movie, where damaged people find connection despite impossible circumstances. Peter Quill's daddy issues, Rocket's defensive sarcasm, even the way the Milano becomes a home for broken souls. Wilder taught Gunn that the funniest characters are usually the saddest ones. The Apartment showed me that comedy could break your heart, that the best laughs come from the deepest wounds. Because sometimes the only way to survive being alone is to learn how to laugh about it, until someone finally sees you're not really laughing at all. Twerm. Dawn of the Dead. 1978, Romero made a zombie movie about capitalism eating itself alive. And for Gunn, watching a group of survivors barricade themselves in a shopping mall while the undead wandered the corridors like mindless consumers. It was revelation disguised as exploitation. Here was a B-movie with A-plus ideas, proof that genre films could smuggle social commentary past audiences who just wanted thrills. They're us, that's all, when there's no more room in hell. The story was deceptively simple on the surface. 4 people escape a zombie apocalypse by hiding in a suburban mall, turning consumer paradise into a fortress entomb. But Romero's genius wasn't in the gore, though it was revolutionary for its time. It was in the metaphor, the way he used horror to examine what we'd already become. The zombies weren't the real monsters, consumerism was. Gunn first encountered it during his trauma days, when he was learning that low budgets didn't mean low ambitions. Here was a filmmaker who understood that audiences would accept any premise if you committed fully to its internal logic. Romero didn't apologize for making a zombie movie, he made it mean something. The film's ensemble dynamic, strangers forced together by crisis, became Gunn's template for team building. You see Dawn of the Dead in every Gunn film that uses genre to explore deeper themes. The Suicide Squad's prison as metaphor for society's throwaway culture. Guardians' space adventure as family therapy. Even Slither's body horror as commentary on small-town conformity. The way his characters bond through shared trauma mirrors those small survivors finding humanity in the apocalypse. Dawn of the Dead taught me that B-movies could have A-plus ideas, that the best way to discuss serious subjects was through ridiculous premises, because sometimes you need zombies to show people they're already dead inside. 4. The Conversation, 1974. Coppola made a paranoia thriller about a surveillance expert who becomes his own victim. And for Gunn, watching Gene Hackman's Harry Call obsess over a recorded conversation that may reveal a murder plot, it was a masterclass in how small stories could feel epic. Here was a film that found cosmic significance in a single moment of doubt, that turned professional paranoia into personal hell. He'd kill us if he got the chance. The story was claustrophobic by design. A professional eavesdropper records a conversation in Union Square, then becomes consumed by what he thinks he's heard. But Coppola's genius wasn't in the mystery, it was in the psychology. Harry's expertise becomes his curse, his ability to hear everything preventing him from understanding anything. The film was Watergate-era anxiety distilled into pure cinema. Gunn discovered it when he was transitioning from indie horror to bigger projects, learning that character could drive plot better than explosions ever could. Here was proof that you could make audiences care about internal conflict as much as external action. The way Harry dismantles his own apartment, searching for bugs, became Gunn's template for self-destruction through obsession. You see the conversation in Gunn's character-driven approach to blockbuster filmmaking. Peter Quill's isolation despite being surrounded by teammates, Peacemaker's inability to connect despite desperate need for approval. Even his ensemble pieces focus on internal struggles more than external threats. The way his heroes often become their own worst enemies mirrors Harry's tragic arc. The conversation taught me that small stories could feel epic, that the most interesting conflicts happen inside characters' heads, because sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the voice telling you not to trust anyone, especially yourself. 3. Brazil, 1985. Gilliam made a dystopian comedy about bureaucracy run amok. And for Gunn, watching Jonathan Pryce's Sam Lowry escape his gray corporate existence through elaborate fantasies while the world crumbled around him, it was proof that weird could be beautiful. Here was a film that turned Kafka into a carnival that made totalitarianism look like a Terry Gilliam fever dream. We're all in it together, kid. The story was Orwell by way of Monty Python. A low-level government clerk dreams of rescuing a mysterious woman while navigating a maze of paperwork, plastic surgery, and state-sponsored terrorism. But Gilliam's genius wasn't in the satire, though it was razor-sharp. It was in the visual imagination, the way he made dystopia feel tactile, lived in, absurdly real. Every frame looked like a nightmare designed by a brilliant madman. Gunn first encountered it during his formative years, when he was learning that cinema could be both profound and profoundly strange. Here was a director who refused to compromise his vision, who fought studios to preserve his artistic integrity. The film's troubled production history became legend. Gilliam's battle with Universal a cautionary tale about creative control. Brazil taught Gunn that sometimes you have to fight the system to save the art. You see Brazil in every Gunn project that celebrates the absurd while critiquing authority. The Suicide Squad's colorful chaos masking governmental corruption, Guardian's bureaucratic Nova Corps failing to understand what they're supposed to protect. Even Peacemaker's exploration of toxic patriotism through superhero satire carries Gilliam's DNA. Brazil showed me that weirdness could be beautiful, that the strangest stories could reveal the deepest truths. Because sometimes you need absurdity to make sense of an absurd world, surrealism to expose what's really surreal about reality. 2. The Night of the Hunter, 1955. Lawton made a fairy tale about evil wearing the mask of righteousness. And for Gunn, watching Robert Mitchum's psychotic preacher hunt two children down a moonlit river while their dead father's money burned in a doll's stomach. It was a revelation wrapped in a nightmare. Here was a film that understood children see the world more clearly than adults, that innocence could be both vulnerable and invincible. The story was Brothers Grimm by way of the American South. A murderous preacher marries a widow to find her dead husband's stolen money, then hunts her children when they escape with the secret. But Lawton's genius wasn't in the suspense, it was in the poetry. Every frame looked like a stained glass window designed by the devil, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. The film moved like a hymn sung backwards. Gunn discovered it when he was learning that most adult stories could be told like children's tales. Here was proof that darkness and light could coexist in the same frame, that horror could be lyrical without losing its teeth. Mitchum's Preacher became Gunn's template for villains who believe their own mythology, who use righteousness to justify evil. You see Night of the Hunter in every Gunn film where innocents face monsters, Baby Groot's vulnerability in hostile worlds, the way his characters protect each other like family. Even his villains often believe they're saving people from themselves, twisting protection into control. The Night of the Hunter taught me that most adult stories could be told like children's tales, that fairy tale logic could reveal deeper truths than realism, because sometimes the monsters are real, but so is the magic that defeats them. 1. E.T. the Extraterrestrial, 1982. Spielberg made a movie about a boy and his alien friend, but for Gunn, watching Elliot hide E.T. in his bedroom while government agents closed in, it was the blueprint for everything he would ever want to say about family, belonging, and what it means to be different. Here was proof that the biggest emotions could come from the smallest characters, that outcasts could teach us how to be human. E.T. Phone Home. The story was deceptively simple. A stranded alien befriends a lonely suburban kid, and they help each other find their way home. But Spielberg's genius wasn't in the spectacle. It was in the specificity. The way E.T. learned human customs through a child's eyes, how Elliot's broken family found healing through caring for something more broken than themselves. The film understood that love doesn't require understanding, just acceptance. Gunn first saw it as a kid and never recovered. Here was a movie that celebrated weirdness instead of trying to cure it, that made the strange thing the hero instead of the threat. E.T. became his template for every misfit who just wanted to belong. Every character who looked different but felt familiar. You see E.T. in every Guardians movie, in the way Rocket and Groot find family among strangers, how Peter Quill's Love of Earth music becomes a universal language, the found family dynamic, the way his teams protect each other fiercely despite their differences. That's pure Spielberg filtered through a punk rock sensibility. E.T. taught me that aliens could teach us how to be human, that the most important stories are about broken people learning to love each other, because sometimes coming home means finding people who accept you exactly as you are, no matter how strange that might be. And there it is. 6 films that didn't just teach Gunn how to direct, they taught him how to dream. The movies that prove misfits make the best heroes. That weirdness is a superpower. That family isn't who you're born with, but who you choose. What films taught you to embrace being different?